Work and Social Care Scrutiny panel. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. So with that statement, I'll hand over to Diane to take us through item number 1. Thanks, Diane.
We have no apologies for absence. We now move to a roll call and we're asking for declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting, either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong, present in the chamber. Councillor Brennan,
present in the chamber.
Councillor Brooks,
in chamber.
Councillor Cassidy, Councillor Daisley,
Present remotely.
Councillor Jackson,
In the chamber.
Councillor Law,
present remotely.
Councillor Moran,
In the chamber.
Councillor McKay,
Present remotely.
Provost Mackenzie,
Remotely.
Councillor Robertson.
Present remotely.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Thanks very much, Diane. We'll just go on to item number 2 then. That's over to Craig Given for the Revenue and Capital Budget Report. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you for yourself, Convener. This is a standard financial report that we bring forward every cycle. This covers a number of main areas. It covers a 25-26 outturn position, a period 3 projected 26-27 outturn, and a current capital and reserves position. First of all, 25-26 outturn position is a final overspend of 397,000. And for additional context, our overall IGB position was an underspend of 764,000, which we transferred to general reserves at year end. As always, we're here to talk specifically about the social care side of the budget, so I'll give a wee bit more detail on that. Our 25-26 position is a final underspend of 397,000, and we had overspends in our children and families budgets and our learning disability budgets. This has been offset by underspends in our adult care budgets and also the use of non-recurring pension monies for last financial years. Members will know we carried out an extensive savings exercise and had this approved at the IGIP in March in order to assist with these pressures and the losses of non-recurring pension monies. Moving on to the current year, as at period 3, we're currently projecting an overspend of £858,000 in the social care budget. For completeness and transparency, the health part of the HSC budget is showing a projected underspend of £515,000, giving a total partnership IGB overspend of £343,000. As I said a few minutes ago, we focused on the social care side of the budget, and again, I'll give a wee bit more detail on it. The main driver for the total overspend is due to projected overspends in children and families budgets and the learning disability budgets. This is partially offset by underspends in the older person's budget. The main reasons for this can be seen in section 3.38, where we highlight that a number of the savings that we approved last year, specifically in children and families, learning disabilities, overtime travel assistance are still to be made. Overall, as an SNT, we continue to work on these and make progress, and we'll have a better position of how this looks at period 5. Our overall IGB position between the health side of the world and also our reserves that we've got, we can stay sustain that for this financial year. Appendix 5 shows our overall earmarked reserves and shows we're in a strong position in terms of these reserves. We started the year with 21.634 million, and we're still on track to have 15.908 by the end of the year. We still have nearly £6 million in smoothing reserves, and these are the reserves that we use during the year to help these assist us with the position that we've got. Overall, it's reasonably okay position at this moment in time, but as always, happy to take any questions that any members might have.
Thanks very much for that, Craig, and thanks for such a thorough narrative around it to help us all understand it as best we can. That's great. I'll just open up for comments and questions. Councillor Moran.
I thanks, Regina. I mean, if you look at reports, and again, I know there's a lot of work in them, but if you look on it, the older persons seem to be projectily underspent, where for some families is always overspent. Now, being an older person myself, you know, I'd like to think that, you know, we're not neglecting the older people to make money elsewhere. You know, so if I get reassurance today, I'd be happy to get it, because it seems to me that seems to be something that's highlighted.
Okay.
The underspent overspent the younger people.
Thanks, Councillor Moran. I'll hand over to Kate as well as to Craig for a bit of information about that. Thank you.
So we're certainly not neglecting our older people. I think that what we've seen in the last year and more recently since the new financial year is much more investment that has came from health into tests to change in older people's, and particularly discharge. So we've done really well last year in terms of that discharge avoidance. And so we're finding we're having the additional monies coming in. It means that we can use the monies in older people's services in a different way. And because we are an IGB, an HSCP IGB, we can use that money to offset demand in other areas, because we have a bottom up approach or a balanced budget approach. So we additionally, and Maxine will talk about some of that, and it's to do with some of the improvement work that we've done in older people's, and we've got a paper today around AWI, which we got additional funding in for before. So, and Alana's here today to talk about the success of our home care redesign and the outputs from that. So I don't think that you've got anything to worry about, Councillor Moran.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for that information, Craig. Were you? No, you're happy with that. Councillor Armstrong.
Thanks, Convener. I'm looking at section 4 and 14, SWIFT replacement. Now, I was largely to blame, if that's the right way to put it, for introducing SWIFT in Edinburgh in the early noughties. It must be seriously creaking now. It wasn't perfect 20 odd years ago. It really must be creaking, and I worry it's contributing to double work, because it doesn't talk to, well, basically, create. I don't want to rehearse all the difficulties with it, but I suppose my question is, if you confirm that it is seriously creaking, and are there any timescales for when it's going to be replaced? Thank you.
Yes, it is seriously creaking, and that there is timescales that we would like to come back to a social work scrutiny board with, and the process of how we take that forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I suppose just before I go to Councillor Jackson, it's fine to ask a supplementary question just to follow up on that. Although it's seriously creaking, I'm sure there are systems and mitigations and processes in place, Kate, to manage any creakiness of it that could be problematic.
So we've had serious creaking for at least a decade. So we've had to mitigate some of the impact by creating different systems as a result. And Scott is here, he's part of the performance team that aggregates that data. But we would like to take proposals to you at some point about an easier way to go forward that would provide some efficiencies in the longer term.
Thanks very much, Kate. Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. It's just on what Ola hit on the older persons, the external care at home service projecting an underspend due to staff shortages. It's just to see if this care is still being delivered, if it's having any effect, or if it's actually getting done in-house.
So I've got the manager, the heads of service here, both Maxine, Alana and Arlene. So if I don't answer this well, please come in. But we have taken things in-house, you know, to offset some of the challenges that we've got with the our external home care. It's another area of work that we're currently looking at. Currently look at how do we tender for the external market, because to avoid us having to absorb some of it. So again, this will be a paper in the next 3 to 6 months with a set of proposals to the Social Work Scrutiny Board. We have we monitor our demand, both for hospital discharge and for the community, and we're meeting all critical and substantial needs. So I just want to provide you with that level of reassurance here. But it's not, again, where we want to be, and it's around, we need to rethink our commissioning intentions and how we want to take that forward with the external market, because we're not alone around the external home care market nationally. It can be very volatile, but there's key processes that we want to change to allow us to be much more efficient and effective in that area. So that will come to us at some point this year.
Okay, thanks, Kate.
Is there anything that I've missed here? No, thank you.
Thanks very much. I don't see any more lights on or any hands up online. So I think I'd just ask the panel members to agree the recommendations on page 2 of the report at section 2. Thanks very much. Thank you. So for item 3, we've got a report to consider on the fostering campaign, and I think Jonathan, are you going to introduce that and then hand us over to Emma?
I don't know if Emma's on.
If Emma's online just yet.
Is she on?
I'm sure.
Looking at the screen, she should be.
No, she's good.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we can either take advice from yourselves. We could either come back to this once Emma joins, if the panel members are okay, happy to take the items in a slightly different order. That would be okay.
Yeah.
So we'll okay, move to item number 4. Then, and we'll all remember to come back to item number 3. So the item number 4 is about adults with incapacity, delayed discharge, test of change. So Maxine, are you going to speak to that in the first instance? Thanks, Maxine.
Thanks. The purpose of this paper is to provide the panel with an update on the development and implementation of the adults with incapacity delayed discharge test of change, which has been funded through Scottish Government investment. Delayed discharge associated with adults with incapacity remains one of the most significant contributors to system pressures across Inverclyde and equates to more than 2,000 bed days annually. We all know that prolonged hospital stays can lead to poorer outcomes for people and put significant pressure across acute and community services. Historically, discharge planning for people with cognitive impairment or incapacity has been characterised by risk-averse decision-making, an assumption that guardianship is required before discharge, and a tendency for long-term decisions to be made within hospital environments. The test of change seeks to challenge these assumptions and establish a new model centred upon supported decision-making, home-first principles, and proportionate risk-taking. The test of change represents a significant cultural shift from risk aversion to proportionate risk taking, waiting for guardianship to legal processes progressing in parallel, hospital-based decision making to home first and discharge to assess, and reliance on institutional care to community-based support and independence. The model is built around 3 integrated components, which are enhanced intensive home support, which is designed to provide flexible community-based assistance to support people to return home at the earliest safe opportunity. Technology-enabled care, and a key principle of the model is that technology should be considered as a first-line intervention rather than as a last resort. Peer support officer model. A dedicated peer support officer role has been incorporated to drive cultural change, support creative solution-focused planning, challenge risk-averse thinking, and provide reassurance to staff and families, with the ambition that all AWI discharges will benefit from peer support officer involvement. The new pathway is structured around 5 operational stages: early identification of AWI-related discharge risks within hospital settings, multidisciplinary discharge planning, development of a risk-enabled support plan, discharge home as soon as risks are understood, proportionately managed and support arrangements are in place, and ongoing weekly community review and escalation arrangements. A core practice question underpinning the model is, what would it take to make this safe enough? This reflects a move towards enabling practice and proportionate decision making. Governance arrangements have been established through the development of a dedicated AWI steering group, alongside senior weekly review and escalation processes. In addition, a new supported decision-making framework and discharge guidance have been developed to provide staff with greater clarity regarding lawful, proportionate and rights-based practice. These documents emphasise least restrictive interventions, supported decision-making, multidisciplinary working and early discharge planning. Paragraph 7.1 talks you through the progress to date in terms of what's been completed and what's already in progress. 8.0 through to 9 highlights the expected benefits short-term, medium and long-term. And paragraphs 9 highlight the key principal risk. The principal risk identified is a continuation of risk-averse practice across the system, which may limit confidence in discharging individuals home before legal processes have concluded. Paragraph 10 highlights the next phase of implementation focused on full operationalisation, not even a word, sorry, operationalisation of the AWI pathway, embedding weekly flow and escalation reviews, collection and reporting of baseline performance measures, evaluation of discharge outcomes and tech utilisation, measurement of delayed discharge reductions attributable to the test of change, and identification of learning and future scaling opportunities. In conclusion, the AWI delayed discharge test of change represents one of the most significant practice and culture shifts undertaken within Inverclyde's discharge system in recent years. By moving from a model based on waiting, risk avoidance and institutional decision making towards one centred on supported decision making, proportionate risk and home first principles, the HSCP aims to improve outcomes for people while addressing a major contributor to delayed discharge and system pressure. Early progress is focused on establishing the foundation required for sustainable change, with the next phase concentrating on implementation, measurement and demonstrable impact. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Thanks very much for that, Maxine. That's really useful to hear about that, and great to get that funding. So yeah, really appreciate all the work that went into getting that funding and putting it into practice so far. So I'll go to Councillor Jackson first, and then yourself.
Thanks, Chair. There's also a lot of work into this, and I welcome it. The only thing I'd like some kind of information on is in 4.2, and that's technology enabled care. If you have cognitive impairment, I mean, it's going to affect your decision making, your safety awareness, information processing, these types of things. And I worry that this technology, a lot of older people with these issues might struggle. And given that according to 421, this is considered the first line of invention and a major part of the model, it does concern me that a lot of people might, if you're cognitively impaired, you have these issues around decision making. I mean, I've come back and I've taken myself, and I went into a lot of mistake with things, and it does actually worry me. Everything else wrapped around support, absolutely, it's a great thing. So much emphasis been put on this, it does raise a concern.
Thanks, Councillor Moran.
Thank you. In no way does the tech replace human support. it's complementary to the human support that people need. I think I've been blown away by some of the achievements of tech with people with really complex, challenging needs around mental health, around disabilities, around a variety of cognitive impairments. What I would do, how I would reassure you is that the tech is far more sophisticated than even I can get my head around sometimes. And there's always a backup plan around supporting people at home with that level of cognitive impairment and support. It is not standalone support. It is wrapped around by community supports, family supports, formal supports. So it's not just tech on its own, and it doesn't replace human care. But I think the challenge for us is helping families who probably perhaps might have the same fears and worries and anxieties that you would have. I think it's time that we start supporting families to help them understand some of the abilities of tech, some of the advancements of tech, when we look at some of the equipment that's provided through, sort of, for example, Salt Connect or whatever else, but even just some of the basic stuff around GPS wandering. Some of the people with cognitive impairments, the biggest risk is the wandering. And, we've been using GPS technology for years to support some of that, door monitors, etc. So this is just about really sort of having the opportunity to try more advanced tech to support that. But I understand your concerns. It doesn't replace human support.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Maxine.
Thanks very much. Thanks for that question, because I know I'd had similar concerns to yourself at first, Councillor Jackson. Then I remember seeing some demonstrations, right from lower tech things like the cup to help people avoiding urine infections. And then when it was explained a bit, or information was given about how it does tie in with that rights-based approach, that actually you're supporting people to have almost more freedom. And when it's used correctly, then they might have with somebody else that they, like you've described in the GPS technologies as well, that people are able to live sometimes a fuller life, but as long as it's all monitored really carefully and carers are there when they need to be. So no, thanks for that question. Councillor Armstrong, and then I'll go to Councillor McCabe online. Thanks.
Thanks, convener. Everything about this is so important. I was so pleased to read this report. Everything about it's important. It's got funding, the policy, the practice, and at the end of the day, proportionate risk taking. It's the best for everybody. It's the best. It's the best for the individual. It's the best for staff. It's the best in the wards. It's just absolutely fantastic. And I don't have a question. I just want to congratulate everybody involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McCabe and then Councillor Moran. Apologies for making you wait, Councillor Moran. Councillor McCabe.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Maxine, for presenting the report. I mean, we've obviously got a relatively good performance when it comes to delayed discharge compared to many other areas, and I appreciate this is about improving performance even further. But it'd be interesting just to sort of understand a wee bit more about the change in the sort of risk appetite. So the traditional approach is set out in the report is risk averse, and the new approach is about proportionate risk taking. So it would be helpful to understand what are the proportionate risks that we are taking by changing approach.
Yeah, thank you. I think some of the changes are about culture shifts. So if we look at the system in terms of acute and community, we both have very distinct appetites and understanding of how we can support people in the community. And that's not through a lack of wanting to support people better in their own homes, but acute work in a very confined system that doesn't really have that broader understanding of what we can achieve in the community. So this culture shift is really about supporting some of our acute colleagues to understand the proportionality in terms of risk taking. So this is not just about us changing our practice. This is about us supporting a culture shift across the whole system. if you put me into this system, I would have been the one taking proportionate risks because that's the background I come from within the community. But we need to make sure that we are helping acute colleagues and other colleagues to understand the ability of communities to support people to take those risks. This is about, we talked earlier about people coming home who have cognitive impairment or perhaps lack capacity, but that doesn't mean to say that they can't make themselves a cup of tea or that they can't get themselves dressed or do some of the things that people would worry about them doing. So it's about being proportionate about what people can do and about understanding what they need support with. So I don't think there's a change in our understanding of risk. There's a change in shifting the culture across the whole system. Am I explaining that well enough?
Well, I suppose my question was more about a sort of the risk to the individual service user. Are they more at risk by being at home than they are being in hospital, essentially?
If you don't mind, if I can come in, so probably an easier analogy is that someone that has got, many people with incapacity live at home, and they live at home with quite full lives with support around them. But then something happens, they maybe get a kidney infection and need to go into hospital. And while they're in hospital, the kidney infection and the compounding fact that they're not in their own environment makes them present as even more confused. So along comes someone else that doesn't really know that individual and assesses that individual and says to mainly social work, that person can't go home, they have got capacity issues, but they went into hospital with capacity. Sometimes that view prevails. But from a human rights approach, if that person was staying in their own community before they went into hospital to get treated, they've got every right to come back out and have that level of support, perhaps enhanced, because that support may well have meant that they needed more support. And then we look at the legal processes that safeguard them. And that is ethical. What at times is quite challenging for us is when they go into hospital and everyone says, well, we'll have to wait for guardianship until we move them, which is mainly to a nursing home, yet that person at some point has indicated they want to live at home. So not only is it a test to change with our own with health staff, it's a test to change where our workforce become much more human rights aware around and not seeing incapacity as being something that we can't overcome. Because if that was the case, and I'll tell you, there'll be a lot of your older people that are sitting in our home care services and other services that would be in a nursing home, and we have to work in the premise. If the family are telling us that it was their wishes to live in their own community, we will do that, but we will not wait to move them back to go through a court process to get a guardianship order. So that is what mainly the difference in the test to change, if that analogy helps people to understand.
So essentially we're saying that the service user isn't at any greater risk, but the service provider are prepared to take more of a risk than they're currently prepared to do.
Yes, but there'll be some cases that we won't be that because that hospital admission might be for much more serious things, and we will say on balance of probability that person might not be able to, but we will not rise and fall over court processes in the same way. We'll take a much more rights-based approach for people that have got incapacity, and we will manage that. We will not walk away from the risk. We will become much more risk-enabled and use some of our technology and an additionality to support people at home. And we've been doing that across the board, around people with nursing home profiles. We know that before the pandemic, and we've actually reduced the number of people that are going into nursing homes and Inverclyde, because if you think about the pandemic, our vision was to support people in the community, not to get people into go to hospital to nursing home. We want to kind of go back and imagine that vision, that we want to keep people in their homes and where it's safe to do so, and that is where we will work alongside with our staff and with our health and our social work colleagues, but also our acute colleagues, to manage that risk a bit differently.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for that question, Councillor Keevan. Thanks for the responses. Councillor Moran.
Aye, thanks, Convener. I mean, the report's good, and I could probably tell you my personal journey on this, but I'm not going to report it today, to tears, because I've experienced all this from one mum who's 94 and fell broke her hip, and they have to wait 3 hours for an ambulance to take her to Paisley, got an operation, and then took down to Blackfield, and she's now out in the house. But at the end of the day, if someone's lying in that position, of course they're going to say want to go home. Of course they're going to say want to go. But maybe something we were a bit deeper. Are they going home to a safer environment? Is the people there to look after them? Not just the carers, maybe their family members. I think sometimes we want to do the right thing, but maybe we shouldn't be channeling people down one road where there may be other options there. The other thing too, I'd been up there on a visit, and care packages. There were people who were stuck up there because the care packages, not from this IJB, I have to say, but from other ones. So that created a bit of bug as well, you know what I mean? So this is great as long as it works, but as long as NHS and IJB are talking together, and NHS is quite happy to put the burden on it at any time, or they can work, they can make a cup of tea, and that's them clear, and then it becomes our problem. Now I think that it could happen, but we really should get all the information off them and make sure it is the proper time for someone to get to leave the hospital, not because they can walk to the toilet and make a cup of tea. And that's what it's like, and I can assure you. So I just hope that this way going forward, this recognises of other people's thoughts that are just hospital and home environment, whether it wants or not.
So that is the purpose of the test to change, that we're looking at that assessment and not predicting that people that go into hospital, because it's the other way around, go into nursing home, and we're going to try and get more people back home to be supported at home where it's safe to do, and that's the caveat, and that's why that strong, robust assessment, that test to change, to show that we also have to increase the confidence within the workforce and within partners that this is an option, that people have got every right where they went into hospital, and we're not talking about people that are being in nursing home and then went into hospital and then wants to go back home. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people that have incapacity issue that we don't have legal orders over, that we allow them to go back home, and then at least we provide that legal safeguard around them at home, hoping that we can keep them there, but if we can't keep them there, we can move them quickly into a nursing home to avoid risk.
And we can sorry, but I mean, we died years ago, called care in the community, when we closed down all these units, but people were quite happy and quite willing to it. And we put them in the community for us to go after. You know, I mean, I hope this way isn't going to be the same road to people who are not going to leave at a particular junction are leaving when they can really do a week or two in a hospital because they'll look good on the discharge numbers. You know, so I just hope that recognitions of all that before they leave.
Thanks very much, Councillor Moran, for that, and thanks. Really appreciate you sharing the story about your mum, and hopefully she's doing better soon, because I think that's really useful to hear about that. Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, thanks very much, Stephen. So go back to sort of this overarching comments that the paper, which is nice to read and it's been presented. So the EWR discharge, phrases that were used was cultural change and changing practice. And although we were sitting here with obviously our top team, I'm sure you're talking, obviously we've got your workforce that are delivering this change. And I'm just asking the question, are we listening to the workforce to ensure that if something's not right, then it goes back to this instructing?
So we've got we're starting to, you're right, you know, I can't just decide, or Kate and I can't just decide in a room that we want to change culture. You know, that has to be with our teams, and it has to be about bringing them along with us. And it's not about saying that what they're doing just now is not good enough. It is about saying we can do things differently. But we're absolutely bringing them along with us. We are working on how to do that around the comms plan and how we engage them. We're fortunate right now that for the test of change, we can focus on a very small or smaller focus group of staff. And if we get the culture change and the practice right with that group of staff, then that's much easier to spread that out across the broader system. So it's a small group of focused staff that we're able to support to change some of that practice. So it feels, because it feels a bit easier doing it with that focus group of staff. We absolutely will bring the staff along with us. We've got some meetings coming up this weekend. There's been a sort of oversight group that's doing the high level stuff, and then that's being pushed for the teams to come up with. So, for example, one of the things we need to do better is identify people in hospital quicker. You know, because by the time they're coming to us, they've already been coded as an AWI. We want to know who these people are before the coding is attached to people, if you like, so that we can start making some moves. So there's a group of staff, frontline staff, I like to think about how can we physically do that? How can we be more visible on the wards and have our voices heard on the wards at an earlier stage? So yeah, you're absolutely involved right through throughout this.
Thanks very much. And I think I think Councillor McCabe's hand is a legacy hand. I'm just going to assume that unless he says differently. I don't see any other lights on, but I think it's been really useful to have that more detailed discussion around the room about that, because I think, like Councillor McCabe said, I was pleasantly surprised to see that we'd had this funding, because I think we have been one of the best performing authorities when it comes to delayed discharge for quite long periods at a time. So I think from what you're saying to us, and you're helping us gain more of a sort of understanding and knowledge of, is that it isn't necessarily, well, I suppose it's partly about improving performance, but it really is about the sort of culture change and processes as well.
So one of the things that we might want to add is that government came and asked us to do the test of change because we were a strong performing local authority and they felt that the risks were marginal because we weren't having to deal with the same issues as the rest of them. So we didn't go looking, they came to us.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a bit of a distinction. They're hoping from this test to change and in reply that they can use it as a national platform to rethink about a more rights-based approach to decision making, particularly when they're currently looking at the AWI legislation across the board, because whilst it was of its time and we need to put it through the lens of human rights and previous decision making for people that have become incapacitated, because many of us in this room wouldn't want to go from hospital to a nursing home, irrespective. So, and I think that if you asked our general older people population or anyone over in retirement age, they would say the same thing. So we have to get back to where we wanted to go in the pandemic, and that's what we keep trying to do.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Kate. Yeah, and that's a real testament to the work that so many people are doing to have had that approach made to yourselves as well. So we're just to agree the recommendations of the panel on page 28.3.1. Okay, thanks very much. And I think we're okay to go back now to item 3, if that's fine with the panel members. Yeah, which is the fostering campaign, and I'm not sure whether Jonathan's going to speak to that first or Emma's going to take the lead away. And Anna, okay. Yes, I'll say a list of names until eventually I get the right.
And Margaret, you've got a multitude of us here today.
Thanks very much, Anna.
So Emma's going to present this afternoon's report, which she's obviously is outlining the social work and social care scrutiny panel, the actions undertaken to strengthen Inverclyde's internal fostering capacity. And it outlines, as you'll see in the report, the impact of the increase in foster carer fees approved by the IGIB on the 24th of March 2025, alongside the improvement activity to support the growth and sustainability of the fostering service. So you'll see from point 2.1 that the recommendation is that the Social Work and Social Care Scrutiny Panel are asked to note the impact of the revised foster care fee structure and the actions being taken to increase and sustain Inverclyde's internal fostering capacity. So pass to Emma now, who's the service manager, who is actually leading on the work in terms of the marketing campaign in relation to fostering and adoption.
Thanks very much, Anna. Emma?
Okay, thank you. Through you, convener. So as Anna has highlighted, the report is advising panel members of the action that we've undertaken as a service to strengthen our internal fostering capacity. Panel members will be aware that these measures were primarily introduced in response to what was significant financial pressures within children and families, arising from an increase in the use of our external fostering and residential provision. But it's also been significantly impacted by there being a reduction in Inverclyde's internal fostering capacity as well. And that's due to a number of reasons, but primarily foster carer retirements, but also a national recruitment and retention challenge that all local authorities are facing currently. As the scrutiny panel will be aware, Inverclyde now offers a fee of £350 per week per child to our foster carers, and this sits alongside the Scottish recommended allowance. And it has significantly strengthened the overall fostering offer from Inverclyde HSCP. I think crucially, the increase has proven to our existing foster carers that they are valued and that we recognise the complexity and the skill and the commitment that is involved in the fostering role more generally. And it does represent a significant increase and uplift for many of our foster carers, particularly those who are caring for 2 or more children. So I'll just take you on now to the next part of the report, which talks you through some of the activity that's taken place. So throughout 2025, the Family-Based Care Service developed a comprehensive recruitment strategy, which provided us with a clearer shared vision and a structure for the recruitment and retention of foster carers. In addition to this, or part of it, our recruitment materials and corporate branding have been refreshed. We have a new and contemporary recruitment pack, which is called Your Guide to Fostering with Inverclyde HSCP. That has been developed by the service alongside our foster carers and is available in a range of accessible formats. So that's included in that is an electronic version. So if we have an inquiry, we can send that out to prospective carers very quickly. And we have printed booklets that we have throughout the HSCP and wider council for people to pick up and take a look at to support our kind of community engagement. And it's also been adapted for Microsoft Sway, which means we can share it with a large amount of mobile devices. So an example of that would be that we have sent that out to all of our home carers. So that's over 400 mobile devices it's been sent out to. Updated branding is now also being used consistently, so across our posters, our pull-up banners, our social media and billboard advertising as well. And I believe that panel members have been provided with an example as part of today's papers of our refreshed branding. So I think you've been provided with our posters. And what I would say is no matter where you see us, whether that's on a billboard, if you're picking up a booklet, you're going to see very consistent themes in terms of the colours, the images that we're using and the language that we're using as well. A crucial part of our strategy has been the introduction of targeted digital marketing. So the service has begun working with a digital marketing provider, and that is to support targeted online recruitment activity. So this includes paid advertising, search optimization and increased social media reach. So for example, if you go into Google and you put in fostering in Inverclyde, we will now be much higher up in the search results than we would have been previously. In addition to that, our corporate communications team have been supportive in helping us to increase our social media activity across Inverclyde Council and HSCP platforms. And we have also introduced webinars as well for prospective foster carers to attend. And the presentation that we deliver as part of those webinars, again, is very consistent with the branding that is seen on social media and out and about in the community. The report highlights that we're seeing early signs that this activity is beginning to increase engagement with the fostering service. Since digital marketing commenced in April 2026, we have received 41 inquiries from prospective carers. And just for context, over 2025, we only had 12 inquiries, so it's a significant increase in inquiries. I think it's important to note that not all inquiries will progress to assessment. However, the increase in inquiries does represent a positive increase in the visibility and reach of the service. Clearly, a key priority will be to ensure that our prospective carers receive a timely and supportive response. So the report highlights that we've, when someone gets in touch with the service, we're getting back to them very, very quickly. They'll get an information pack sent to them within 24 hours, a follow-up phone call within kind of 48 hours, and then we're very quickly going out to visit people in their homes as well. So we've really strengthened our response to inquiries as well. Work has also been ongoing to strengthen the engagement with the wider HSCP and council workforce, just in terms of fostering awareness, but also to encourage employees to consider fostering alongside their existing employment. Part of that work has been to explore the potential for Inverclyde Council to become a fostering friendly employer. So that work is also ongoing, and that would allow our existing employees to become foster carers, and our policies would support them to do that. So to support that work, we've been delivering recruitment presentations across a variety of settings, so including children's residential services, education, organisational development, many more that's highlighted within the report. All of this activity combined really is beginning to translate into progress within what we call our fostering pipeline. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that kind of terminology, you enter the fostering pipeline when you make your first inquiry. So if you're on our landing page and you ask for more information, or you pick up the phone, you enter into our fostering pipeline. And the fostering pipeline starts at that very early stage and ends when assessment is complete. So there's currently 4 fostering assessments underway, with a further 4 prospective fostering households scheduled to attend what we call our pre-approval preparation and training programme later on in August. So overall, there are encouraging early indicators that the combination of increased fees, strengthening recruitment activity, and the development of the integrated family-based care service is beginning to positively impact local fostering recruitment activity and interest in the service. In terms of next steps, so we're going to continue to do the work that we've been doing so far. We're going to continue to try and increase our number of local fostering placements for our children in Inverclyde, so that we can reduce the need for them to be placed externally. We're going to continue to evaluate the impact the range of measures that we've put in place have had on our fostering capacity. But in addition to that, we're also going to look at ways that we can continue to retain foster carers and support our existing foster carers. So I think that's everything I wanted to highlight within the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much for that, Emma. That's really comprehensive and really good for us to get that update, because I know it had been a big piece of work for yourselves, with a lot of support behind it from elected members in the administration to make that increase in the foster carer pay and see this change, because of all the reasons you've talked to us about the improved outcomes for children and young people if they're able and supported to remain in Inverclyde instead of looking to external placements so often. So no, it's great to get that update, and I know that we'll be all keeping a keen eye on seeing these inquiries on the rise, but hoping that they translate to an increase in foster carers in due course. So yeah, I'll just open up for questions and comments. So I've got Councillor Armstrong.
Thanks, Convener. The former foster carers on this, who are members of this panel, very much welcome this report. A comment I think from us would be that money is important, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is support, and that's professional support, peer support, family and friends. And with that, could I ask maybe if you could just, is it possible to give us some examples under 4.1 of the development of high quality training, learning and development opportunities for our carers? Is it possible to have some examples about what that training and opportunities or opportunity looks like? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I can. And so through you, convener. Yes. So learning and development is difficult for our foster carers in terms of access and training. It can be difficult for them. So recognising that, we've tried to think of ways that we can have foster carers accessing as much training as possible and getting support from us. So earlier this year, we introduced an online training programme for our foster carers called Flourish. So in addition to the face-to-face learning opportunities that we provide, of which there are many, our foster carers are now able to access, I think it's almost 300 training programmes online as well. And that is very early days. I've just started to use that, but there's been lots of positive feedback about that so far. In addition to that, every 3 months we hold what we now call our foster carer appreciation and development sessions, and that is time with our foster carers and the service to get together, to show our appreciation to them, to thank them for all their hard work, but also to do a bit of focused training together as well as a service. And there's different themes for different sessions when we meet. So that's every 12 weeks as well. And in addition to that, we have our foster carer support groups as well, which are informal support groups for our foster carers to go along to talk to other foster carers, and also to meet members of the team as well as that. And obviously that is in addition to the kind of formal supervision that our foster carers get from their supervising social workers. So we've really we've broadened the opportunities for our foster carers, I suppose, over the last 12 months in terms of making training and learning more accessible for them over the last 12 months.
Thanks very, very much, Emma. Thanks, Anna. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that question. Yeah, sure. Councillor, thanks for that question, Councillor Armstrong, because I think that was really helpful for us to get that insight into the training. Kate?
No, it's just an observation that I've seen in terms of our promise activity. Something that I didn't see when we first came in here, there's many more foster carers that now engage with the promise and the promise activity, and I just feel that that's probably an output of all the work and the relation. Because we've got into a very difficult place if we think back about 2 years ago, and that made us rethink about what is the support. You're right, it's not just about the money, it's about feeling that you're being supported, and the fact that they're coming along to our promise events is, as you know, Councillor Brennan, is just a testimony to the relationship building.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for that, Kate, because I think, there's just been so much kind of thinking and consideration and progress and development around the whole work of the promise, hasn't there, that I know, as you say, you've all been part of, and Emma in particular, so no, it's been great to see it and great to hear about it. Thanks very much. Okay, so no further questions or comments. So can we agree the recommendations on page 19 at section 2.1? Thank you. And then we're jumping on to item 5, which is care at home, impacted review, valuing the social care workforce, and I've got Scott and Alana talking to that. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Maura. So as the paper outlines, 2022, the HSEP undertook a comprehensive review of its care at home service. This has been in response to a significant workforce challenges experienced at the time, including increased turnover of staff, recruitment difficulties, growing demand, and increased complexity of need for people accessing our services. The review recognised that the existing home support worker role and grading was no longer adequately reflective of the actual skills that needed to do the responsibilities, and they did not effectively value the workforce. So following review, the recommendations we were implemented in August 2023, we've seen a number of significant impacts that we'll discuss in more detail. So these impacts have been evidenced across the workforce, across the wider service user experience, and in the wider Inverclyde communities as well. I'll pass on to Alana to provide more information on the actual workforce review itself.
Thanks, Scott. As Scott said, the care at home service faced significant challenges leading up to this review. We were experiencing an unstable workforce characterised by high levels of staff turnover, with the number of leavers peaking at 156 in 2023. This workforce instability was impacting the quality of care we were delivering. It contributed to delayed hospital discharges and we had inconsistent service provision. Recognising these issues, the Care at Home review was initiated with the core rationale of addressing our recruitment and retention difficulties, enhancing the status and professionalism of our workforce, and ultimately improving service quality and service user outcomes. The review focused on re-provisioning our home support worker role into a social care worker position, reflecting the complexities and responsibilities of the role through a grade regrading and salary uplift. Following the implementation of these changes, we've seen a marked improvement in workforce stability. Staff leavers reduced from 156 in 2023, initially dropping to 86 and then to 78 in the subsequent year. And I'm pleased to report that again, that dropped last year to 69. This reduction evidenced the review's positive impact on our staff wellbeing and their morale, with employees expressing to us that they feel more valued and professionally recognised within the social care worker role. We view this as a strong foundation for ongoing succession planning and workforce development. Furthermore, this more stable and skilled workforce has substantially reduced our hospital delayed discharges related to waiting on a care at home package. Notably, since October 24, there has been no delays, which was attributed to the lack of care at home capacity. This operational improvement has supported timely discharges and better flow within the health system. Quality of care has also improved, as indicated by the Care Inspectorate's recent grading, where the service achieved a score of 5 in all key areas inspected this year. This rating underscores both the improved consistency and higher professional standards now embedded within our service. In summary, the Care at Home review has been instrumental in transforming the workforce conditions, enhancing the quality and reliability of care delivery, and positively impacting service user outcomes in Inverclyde.
Okay, thanks, Alana. Yeah, so alongside those workforce improvements and wider improvements, the paper also highlights an important wider outcome related to poverty and inequality within Inverclyde. So, as Alana highlighted, a key element of the redesign was the regrading of the workforce and associated salary uplift. So that was moving our workers from a grade 3 to a grade 4. Following that implementation, staff members received a 4% pay increase, with the starting salary rising to 26,218 in 2023 and then increasing further to 28,610 by 2025. So both of those salaries actually sit above the national poverty threshold. The gap between the starting salary and the poverty line increased from approximately 4,300 in 2023 to almost 4,800 in 2025. So showing that we're actually increasing that gap between wages and the poverty line. Our staff at the top of that scale are more than 6,900 above the poverty threshold. So on top of that, given that the members of our social care workforce live locally and live within Inverclyde, that regrading is actually helping to reduce the risk of in-work poverty locally and actually supports the financial well-being for a significant number of Inverclyde households. The benefits extend beyond individual staff members, with those increased earnings likely to be reinvested in our local communities and then back into the local economy. So overall, the report demonstrates that while the value in investing in our social care workforce has delivered measurable benefits, has improved recruitment and retention, strengthened service resilience, supported hospital flow and enhanced the care quality, and made a meaningful contribution to attending local poverty and inequality within Inverclyde. So thanks very much, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Scott, and thanks for that, Alana. Councillor Moran.
I just some comments, I have to say this is a fantastic report, and the person sitting next to you is one of the ones that really push for it, and quite honest with you. Because at the time when we were recruiting, you were getting £13, £40 for back shelves and Tesco's and stuff like that, and we found it really difficult. It wasn't about money, because you can never pay these people enough money, in my opinion, for the job they do. It's absolutely amazing, fantastic, brilliant, any word you want to use. That's what these people do every single day of their life. So the fact that we got a wee bit more money was fantastic. But I also talked to some of the workers out there. They tell me the work-life balance is a lot better than the 4 days of work. It's a big win for them as well. If you're going to have decent salary and you get some time off to enjoy it with your family, and you're doing a job you love, because when you do that job, you love it. It's a special person to do that job, in my opinion. So I think it is a great report, and Kate sits there next to you. Remember we talked about it years ago, and this is now coming to fruition now. And I have to say I'm more than happy with this report today. So thanks to everyone concerned.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Moran. And absolutely agree with you and associate myself with those comments. There's so much in it for a lot of people to be really, really proud of, I think. And absolutely that message that you're putting forward, that the workforce feels more valued, and it's not just about them feeling valued, they absolutely are valued, I'm sure, by yourselves and by lots of people across Inverclyde, and that it's security and employment for Inverclyde workers is exactly what all of us would want to achieve. And as you say, when we get that right, we get other things right as well. So no, it's really fantastic. Thanks for that. But yeah, sure, Kate.
Can I add in, the reason why we developed this report, we were curious to see the impact of it, but Scottish Government asked us to look at the impact, and particularly the impact on our workforce, but our wider economy. So that report is now sitting with Scottish Government because they were interested to understand our performance and the fact it is sitting in the upper range, and all the activity to look at having better outcomes for people, and they recognise the importance of the social care workforce in actually delivering this. So this report is with government as we speak.
Thanks very much, Kate. Thanks a lot. Councillor Armstrong.
Thanks, convener, and thanks, Alana. Thanks, Scott. Great report, great work, and I want to completely associate myself with Councillor Lanahan's comments. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, again, I think Robert summed it up, honestly. For too long we didn't value the work. You know, not everybody is cut out for this type of work. I think it takes a very special person to do that. You know, you suggest to somebody they're going to do a job, they're going to be given meds, they're going to be doing personal care. Quite a frightening thought. And it takes a very compassionate person to carry out that type of work. I mean, during COVID, we all applauded the work of the care staff, but was little value, financial value of recognition. And we all know poverty in Inverclyde is bad, but we also know that a lot of the workforce in social care is females. Now, I know quite a lot who are involved, who are working for social care. And what it does do is, Robert again hit on, is work-life balance. We've got a lot of students who are working as care workers. It's allowing them to continue their studies, to work. We've got a lot of parents who are given time to look after their children, as well as working as well, part-time hours. It also gives them that flexibility. And I think it's a great report because we've always kind of, I wouldn't say taken advantage, we've always relied on the compassion of these people to continue to do the job. But at the end of the day, these care workers need to pay their rent. And I think this rise is brilliant. I think the recognition of everything that they do is all welcome. And I thank everyone in the council, and the care workers out there for everything they do. I think it's a fantastic report. But I think Robert summed it up in his comments. Thanks.
No, thanks so much for that as well, Councillor Jackson, to bring forward some additional points too. No, thank you. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Scott and Alana. I'm sure you'll convey the appreciation as well of the panel to everybody who needs to hear it. Okay, so we just agree the recommendations on page 37 under section 2. Thanks very much. That takes us on to item number 6. Which is the Health and Care Staffing Scotland Act 2019 annual report. And I think, Jonathan, you actually are going to speak to this report. I've tried to bring you in several times erroneously, but I think this is your moment. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Convener. And through yourself, this is the annual report that we provide on specific duties placed on integration authorities around the contractual arrangements with providers of specific social care services. So the report ensures that our duties are met under the Health and Care Staffing Act and reflect consideration of staffing arrangements in commissioned social care services that are registered with the Care Inspectorate. There's more detail of that grouping at 4.1 of the report. It also outlines that this duties report does not include all services, for instance, services provided directly through the HSCP and health services, which are reported on separately. The report refers to services delivered by those other Commission services and actions they have taken to comply with the Act, and how our commissioning and contracts teams oversee that and ensure the Commission services are complying with that. And they look at a range of information that again is referred to in the report itself around staffing levels and abilities, their compliance with regulations, learning and development, etc., as well as those supervision and appraisal systems and supporting staff to access external support where that's required. Our own requirements also include how services can improve outcomes for service users as part of that focus on their staffing arrangements and their compliance with the legislation, and that takes account of service user dignity and rights as well as their compliance with our contract monitoring arrangements. There is some further information included about some of our other strategic commissioning activities, including undertaking periodic reviews of Commission services and looking at some more detailed assessment and review activity as well. The report before the panel today has gone to the Integration Joint Board as well and to Scottish Government. We had a duty to report by the end of June, and the report has been prepared for publication nationally as well as locally. So it is a brief report, but hopefully a helpful summary, and again, happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Jonathan. Thanks for that. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, it's just one question. It's on the monitoring of some of these external care providers. Historically, we've been aware that, I'll give an example, Jonathan, is, just for the maths sake, is, you might say you're going to pay a care provider, that care provider is going to pay their staff £15 an hour, and we still have evidence that some of these care providers are going to pay their workers for the visits they do, so you could work 2 hours to earn your £15. And that was something we were aware of a few years ago. And I know we still have some care providers who are doing that. So you might need to work a 10-hour shift to earn your 8-hour, £15 an hour. And I'm saying £15 an hour, but we know that's not what you're paid. I'm just wondering how we monitor these external care providers to make sure they're not using these kind of loopholes to avoid paying the proper going rate. I mean, we've just welcomed a good paper on paying care staff, our own care staff, well, and recognising the job that they do, but external care workers do the exact same job and they don't get paid anywhere the same amount. So yeah, it's just on the monitoring. How can we be sure that these external care providers, these external workers are getting treated fairly?
Thanks, Councillor Jackson. Jonathan?
Certainly, thank you through yourself, Convener. At 5.4 of the annual report itself, Councillor Jackson, there's a summary of the requirements within our contract arrangements with external providers, and it looks at the staffing ratios for the work allocated, but also really importantly, it looks at those fair work practices, and that includes payment of the living wage. Within our wider contract monitoring arrangements, members will know that you'll hear every time at this meeting our fuller governance report, which I'm sure Barry's in the chamber this afternoon to talk to that. But really within those contract monitoring and service review processes, we include as standard the expectation within our own good work practices, but within the spirit of the Act as well, that those commission providers will adopt those fair work practices, which includes payment of the living wage.
Okay. Thanks very much, Jonathan. Thank you. Councillor Moran.
I just one question. It's 6.3, and Jonathan might know the answer, but it's just changing the national work policy and access to overseas recruitment may further exacerbate recruitment pressures across the Commission services. How much of an impact do you see it having going forward, Jonathan, if you can answer that?
I suppose I would try through yourself, Convener, to Councillor Moran, look back to look forward, and obviously we've seen in Inverclyde over the last 3 years some changes within our population and some temporary changes within migrant populations, where we did see a presence perhaps in some of the Commission social care provider staffing arrangements that were temporary and transient. So I suppose any changes in that national workforce policy is something that again we would be looking at through our market facilitation processes to consider the local workforce, but also to consider how any of those recruitment pressures that we experience as an HSCP may also impact on those commission services as well. So I suppose it's a watching brief, but in terms of being able to access overseas recruitment, it can also come down to what agencies are able to sponsor international employees, and that is certainly a varied picture, but we can get you some more information on that specific point after today, if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan. Kate?
So our recruitment of overseas, it's not necessarily, we've not got the biggest footprint in it for lots of different reasons. You could say people tend not to live here and go elsewhere, but I know that that is affecting other HSCPs in terms of the proposed changes around the right to remain and the visa elements, so much so that the third sector, where it's having a big impact. We just had a discussion with one of our third sector colleagues yesterday who's saying that this has got a huge impact because people aren't getting the sponsorships in the way that they used to have. So it's certainly, we're not feeling it, but others are.
Kate, can I just say, I know there's a lot of sensitivities around this issue because even calls from it, we've got people applying for taxi badges and stuff like that, and we just will not process it because it's hard to check the background so many years from that. So obviously people we would be employing would be fully checkable, and we'd be quite confident that they're clear, they're a good background.
Yeah, the bar is quite high, so a lot of our, Alan will tell you better, than we do get applications, but if they do not meet the bar for the SSC, we aren't able to employ them. And that's the picture across the board. But there is a need for that workforce to be developed in Scotland. To be honest with you, we have got huge pressures in the social care workforce. And I think it's something that we should be looking at, but it doesn't impact us in the same way as other places.
Thank you. It's just a reserve.
Thanks for that, Kate. Okay, so don't see any other lights on, so can we agree the recommendations at page 49 under section 2? Thanks very much to Jonathan for all your work on that. So we're on to private agenda item number 7. Just check we're ready to go into that.